peer behind the veil of fantasy, where dragons roam, planeswalkers duel, and friendships are sparked. A place where games come alive. Whether you're just learning how to tap lands, a Magic the Gathering master, or simply hunting for the perfect family board game, Top Flight Gaming is your new home away from home. Now open behind the mall in Terre Haute at 3175 South 3rd Place. Top Flight Gaming, where every game takes flight.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Tourney Timmys podcast. We're your host. I'm Kay.
I'm Mark.
I'm River.
And today we're going to be talking about a few different topics. This is going to be part 2 to our last episode, covering the non-meta deck, as well as what makes a deck cEDH viable. And should we start considering some other options due to the prevalence of Cradle? The meta decks that we were all bringing to the table that we didn't get to cover in the last episode. Are either of you eager to jump into the deck that you think should play?
Mine is Yoshi Silas. It plays very similarly to like Rogsai in that it's just like a turbo deck, but the main thing for me is like you don't just have to go for it as soon as possible just to like get stopped and watch somebody else win. You can like try to fight for your window a little bit more and kind of make your own with like silence effects instead of like the red cards. And I'm also playing Bolus's Citadel and Sensei's Divining Top, which allows Silas to actually act as a form of recursion for once and like actually make himself useful. And then you also get the cards like I was playing it as Zur the Enchanter, which was just like obviously your typical like Turbo Necropotence deck, but it's so telegraphed anymore, and with like everybody on opposition agent and everything, it just didn't feel great. But the benefits over that are you still get Diabolic Intent, Mox Amber, it's a lot better having a 1-drop in the command zone for it. Culling the Weak's really useful. And even the new counterspell from Final Fantasy, the Louis Sacrifice, is like really strong in the deck.
Yeah, I love that it's also a stifle.
Yeah,
it's definitely one that's way more playable compared to the previous ones. So I guess my question is, it's just like, how realistic is it with Yoshi to him getting to be like a 5/5 or 6/6, and you're actually looking to keep him on the battlefield? Is it like ever something that you're looking for?
It's more of a if it happens, which it certainly can. Realistically, he's normally more of like a 3/3 or a 4/4, but I mean that still blocks your Tymnas, your most other attackers that are gonna come at you in the meta, unless it like flies. And you've still got, you know, your cost reducers like you do for your necro lines and whatnot. It's still got Valley Flood Caller and Retraction Helix as of right now. So it's got a little bit of everything going on, but it like kind of plays pretty consistently, surprisingly.
Okay. Yeah, because I know you won the last league that we have in the server with it. You were on top, but you kind of gave your top 4 place to someone who's not part of the moderation team. But because I only played against it a few times, and we've been in like precarious situations where like I'm playing Shorikai and you're playing Yoshi Silas, and whether or not I have to stop you or the person following you on their turn who's trying to be greedy and like resolve like an intuition on top and just try to get their win on top, or just whatever the situation is. How are you winning most of your games with that deck? Is it still through the Necropotence package that the Zur deck originally had, or are you winning with something else?
No, Necropotence and Necrodominance are like really kind of on the back burner in this pile. Believe it or not, I've won more games with Smothering Tithe and Time Twister and like going into tutors or whatever off of the wheel than I do with Necro. Just because that's what people expect when they're like, oh, that's just a like turbo Necro deck, so then they like try to plan for that and you just pivot. It still obviously plays Thassa's Oracle as well. That's probably, 30-40% of my wins with the deck. I've also just won a lot of games with Bolus's Citadel. I had a game where it was a fish in play, a Mystic Remora, but they only had like 2 cards in hand when I started the combo, and my Transmute Artifact resolved to go get my Bolas' Citadel. So I just forced a win through the fish, and they couldn't draw more answers than what I had to counter it. So
Okay. So for this off meta deck, like what about it is appealing to you in this type of meta where you think it should be played more?
it's really nice having the low CMC commander for the free spells like Fierce Guardianship, Deadly Rollick, um, Mox Amber. Like just the consistent like early advantage is really nice. It kind of reminds me of like the Rog Thrasios list, but it plays differently enough that like people aren't metagaming for it right now.
Yeah, I mean, but at least for you playing the deck, like does it feel like there's a big downside not actually playing Cradle in your deck, like maybe playing Yoshi Thrasios?
No, not really. I like it more than those decks right now for my playstyle personally, just because like we're starting to see people play like a little bit more field wipes or like just those kind of things. The big thing that I like about this deck is it's like turbo and mid range in the same deck, where like I can just play value engines and grind the game and then just explode whenever I feel like the window's open. And I feel like some of those decks can't do that without just being really obvious about it.
Okay. Do you have any specific cards in there that are possibly attacking the meta that are just uniquely great in your deck?
I think the Louis sacrifice just being like a stifle or a counterspell without like giving my opponent treasures off of offer is like top tier right now. I am also playing counterbalance, trying that out right now with
Okay.
Sensei's Divining Top, just because it's like free interaction if I can get it going.
Okay. I've had a talk with a few people about that card. At like what point do you think about like running it? Do you have to have like a 2 drop? Like is your line like on possibly being a 1 drop or Rog Rack where like that's the only time you want to play that card?
It's more like for this deck, it's the fact that I'm already a Sensei's Divining Top deck with Bolas' Citadel, so it's like almost a free include to just put counterbalance in the deck. I feel like the other places it can be good are like in Shorikai or something along those lines where you're playing like a hard control package and it's
Yeah.
just like you don't have to keep wasting counter spells on everything to deny your opponent's resources.
Okay. Well, I was asking about the Louis sacrifice.
Oh, okay. That
Okay,
card's
because
just
it's
really
like
like it
yeah,
does almost anything you need it to. It counters a non-creature spell or a triggered or activated ability for like literally just 1 mana.
yeah.
It is
Okay.
really good in Rod Rack piles as well for similar reasons.
I mean, where do you guys think the cutoff is for a card like this? Like, because even if you have Thrasios, like usually people are already leaning on like Flare of Denial, but like, would you possibly play this card over it? So you would be sacrificing Thrasios to that card instead?
I think that you just have to be careful with these cards because, like, I don't really mind losing Yoshimaru. I feel
Mhm.
like Thrasios decks sometimes care a lot more about losing Thrasios than I ever will about, oh no, my dog died. Like,
Mhm.
it's just not the same effect on my board state. It's not affecting my card draw or possibly my land situation.
Okay. What about you, River? I know you've been jamming a lot of Tevish Thrasios. I mean, is this a card that you've been thinking about in that deck?
No, I think if I were to play another effect similar, I would play Abjure over it. Uh, for 1 blue, you sacrifice a blue permanent, so I don't have to sacrifice Thrasios necessarily. And you just counter target spell. Or I would just play like hard silence effects, which I already do. I already play the 2 main ones, Trick Bind and Tishana's Tidebinder. Stifle effects. And yeah, it's definitely a good card, but like I wouldn't want to be on more than Flare in my deck, seeming how I can use Flare like really any time and still feel fine, whereas Sacrifice I'm almost only holding it up for like hyper specific situations because I'm never going to reveal to my opponents that I have it and be like, yeah, I can counter this non-creature spell.
Oh.
I'm like saving it primarily for a stifle effect, and the fact that it gets hit by mental misstep is like pretty relevant.
That's pretty fair. I do think it's like really, really strong in Rograk decks specifically, just because like Rograk's literally just there to get sacrificed to something at some point or to enable the free spells. Um, but yeah, I could definitely see not wanting to be put in a position to have to sack Thrasios just to use this card.
Okay. Speaking of which, how many cards are you on for Yoshi that like a Rograk would typically utilize? That's like Springleaf Drum or like Phyrexian Tower in these cards. Are you on less compared to the Rograk decks, or are you just still on all of them, just acknowledging that you're playing a 1-drop instead of a 0-drop?
I'm not on Phyrexian Tower specifically. I've considered it, but I'm only on 13 other creatures. And just a lot of them I never want to actually sack the Phyrexian Tower, so it just would end up being a colorless land that I just don't have room for by the time I play like Ancient Tomb, City of Traders. But other than that, I'm playing the Mox Amber, Springleaf Drum, Bollock Intent, Culling the Weak. Yeah. So I'm playing most of the other ones minus Phyrexian Tower.
Okay. Yeah, I think the dog still needs some more exploring. I think everybody's kind of going crazy about the Rograk Thrasios or Tevish Thrasios decks right now.
We don't have any dog players.
None at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have like
No.
0. It's
Okay.
it's me and another guy playing Tevesh Thrasios. It's our buddy Hunter who plays really all meta decks, but he's primarily on Rog Thras and Marnius Calgar. Another buddy who plays primarily Tyam and Heliod, the Flash Speed Heliod, and then a couple other stuff like Chulane, Blue Farm, Rogsai, Paco Halden.
If I had more free time right now, I would actually like be comfortable playing this deck in paper given our meta. I've just been extremely busy for the last several weeks trying to get the storefront up and running.
The deck that I chose is Rafine. I don't know about you guys in your area, but for here, I remember when like Tivit was getting to be really good. Like I saw like a few Rafine players that were like testing around with him, and then they kind of just jumped back to Tivit after his results in tournaments were going up, and then I just like back to. So I've been having a fun time trying to see like the different builds that I can put with it, and like with how creature heavy the meta is right now, some of the like creature beatdown plans that Rafine decks were utilizing in the past, I don't think is the other variations of it. I mean, there's like Turbo Doomsday, there's Reanimator, which I think a lot of those Rafine pilots have kind of just switched over to, which I actually prefer to play in the 99. I don't like it as a commander. Card advantage it is one, but like your reanimation targets like don't have to be like anything crazy like a Razakath or like a Villas or something crazy. Just try to win the game like at like on that turn. Instead, I've been playing Archfiend and Ifnir, Elish Norn, and Toxrill as like my main 3 that I'm looking for, which just absolutely clear the boards. And specifically with Toxrill just giving me so many slugs, like it makes Rafine really, really good. But I do have one other option in there, which is Jin-Gatack Augur. I have never had the opportunity of animating it yet, and if I do, we're going to see if it gets Swords to Plowshare. I don't know. We'll find out. But it's another deck that can utilize the 2 cards that are really attacking the meta, at least in my area, because our T&D player, he switched to Yoshi Thrasios right now. There's still a Crick player. I don't think he'll ever play anything else other than Crick. He just loves that deck. as well as like Blue Farm and a few different Cradle decks. There's this one guy, I think last time I saw him, he was trying out Lumra, because there's another guy in Lakeland that's apparently doing really well with it. But like being able to like choose to play Cradle or Curse Totem / Damping Sphere, I think is where you have to like in this meta if you're not looking to try to abuse it like every other deck. Especially if you can play other cards like Drawn on Linvala, for example, but I don't know what deck is typically looking to utilize that other than Tivit. I haven't gotten around to testing it in Rafine, but just having like the standard reanimation package of just like those 3 main creatures to clear the board and then grind through and find our own win con and protect it. It's been doing well.
As far as Ronald Linvala goes, it's really, really strong in Timna Malcolm lists and Marnius decks as well.
Have you guys been seeing them play it at Marnius?
Yeah, our local Marnius player plays it. I actually played a Get Lost, and he managed to manifest it, and I was not exactly thrilled about it.
Wait, Get Lost.
Or not Get Lost. What was the what's the Unwanted remake?
Oh,
He,
okay. Yeah.
He manifested Dread into his Drawn on Linvala and just like steamrolled us all.
Oh, that just sounds like an like unlucky situation.
For sure, but like the card's still extremely good in the deck. It doesn't really affect most of your deck, minus like I guess Marnius. It doesn't even shut off your own Marnius activations, so
Yeah, it's asymmetrical, which I think is the strong part about it. I
yeah.
will still not understand why they made a strictly better like Linvala Keeper of Silence. Even at the same mana cost, it's kind of crazy. But
yeah, I don't know why that thing has vigilance.
dude, I don't know, but they definitely wanted to give the card some love. That's for sure. In my version, I'm not really doing too much. Like I actually chose to take out the other Boardwipes I was on. I was on Supreme Verdict and Vanquish, but at least from what I had seen from playing Rafine, the Boardwipes really did affect my opponents very harshly. But it felt like I kept shooting myself too much in the foot. So like this reanimation plan to clear everyone else's creatures and not my own. Granted, sometimes it won't always resolve. Just like the same thing if I cast a Vanquish the Horde. Like it doesn't. It's not always going to resolve unless it's specifically Supreme Verdict. But spending 4 mana, it just I don't know. Spending 4 mana and then passing the turn just feels kind of rough. Like unless you're trying to do like Thrasio stuff right now, and I'm just not a huge fan of that. Granted, there are specific cards the deck can utilize, like Teferi's Ageless Insight. So, like, you can start going card positive, which those are always like hilarious situations because if you just have like 3 or 4 creatures, you could have like that in a Delny and like that's a little Christmas landy, but like these come up because of like how much Rafine will just loot through your deck. And if you're playing the reanimation package, you can start utilizing that to get back your smaller stuff to try to control the game. Like having a 5/5 Bowmaster's really good, even if people are trying to clone it, just because it has way too much toughness.
Yeah. As far as the field wipe situation goes, I know me and you have like looked into available options just in our format as a whole. Have you looked into something like Split Up maybe that could hit your opponent's stuff and not the majority of yours for like crackbacks or anything?
I've definitely looked at it, primarily with stack stacks, which I did think are just having a tough time right now in the meta. I think there's just like way too many supporting things for Thrasios for those. But I don't know, double pips is always a tough situation. Like the only thing that I'm ever looking for to like try to get double pips early on for is white, specifically for your Grand Abolisher, Ranger Captain. And I know you guys hate the card, but I'm on Trouble in Paris in that deck too. It still does great for me. I think the only thing else in there that actually has double of the same pip right now that I'm not reanimating is just Thoracle. And like it's tough sometimes with Rafine to try to like keep lands to keep trying to progress your mana. because it's card selection rather than card advantage. Because like your hand's never really getting bigger, so you're always trying to find like your very impactful piece that will get you to a win, or at least give you enough time to try to get to your win. Like it plays Timna in the 99. It also plays Talion because trying to have card advantage for something that gives you a great deal of selection is just like if you can draw 5 cards in a turn cycle, then on your turn start looting through like 4 or 5 and just keep going that much deeper and being able to utilize your graveyard as an extension of what's going on. Like it feels strong. That the only difficult part that it ever really had was getting to that point into that mid game after dropping Rafine, like a couple good creatures that are getting additional value. But since we've switched over to the mid range meta, you have that time that you wanted to set up without like too much pressure, unless you see like somebody just have like a god start with like Thrasios Rograk, where they're just immediately trying to storm by like turn 3. Usually, what I see going on with like the Thrasios decks right now is that they'll just try to land a strong engine on the board, or just make a bunch of mana and like trying to progress it up until like say turn 4, turn 5, where they're looking at being able to like River can speak on it better than me, because I don't know the exact like thresholds that you want to be meeting for the amount of mana that you want for your turns, because like example being Sisay. Like with Sisay, the 5-color one, it's pretty simple. You by each turn you get in the game all the way up to turn 4, you want to try to make 2 additional mana per turn to just like effectively goldfish if you didn't have any opponents that like get to your win. I don't know that threshold for every Thrasios deck right now. I'm definitely understanding more of it with Rograk Thrasios, but I think I just have like a mental block with that deck. I've played so many games with that deck, and I'm always struggling to get to a win. Even if I'm in a storming situation, I just like something does not click. I'm very like A plus B. I'd rather just make infinite mana, throw it into Thrasios, and win. There's like a few other like I don't want to call them pet cards, but I think uniquely good cards for a deck like this. It also has Luris in there. I wish I could throw it as the companion, but I can't. But it's very low to the ground, specifically with all of its permanents, that I think it only misses on like 6 cards. That's not including enchantments. But yeah, I think it misses on like 5 or 6 permanents in the deck, which like the main one you'd really want back out of those. But like there's not really a good way to get back to 1 ring unless you're doing some stuff I don't think is fit for cEDH.
Emery might like a word with you, but
Well, that's Emery, but
I know.
trying to throw that in an Esper shell, I don't know how I'd feel.
Have you tried or like thought about the blue go-go that can copy activated or triggered abilities?
The blue go-go. No, I feel like I've completely missed this card in like the spoilers, because this is news to me. No, I think I saw the other art now that I see the what is it, the extended art? Whichever one this is. I remember seeing that. I just don't remember reading it. I don't know. That'd be something I'd be curious to test. I mean, like copying at once, I think is efficient for the mana, doing 2 mana to copy at once. But getting to that point where you're spending like 4 to copy it twice seems like
Right.
it's a little Christmas landy, unless you have something like a Smothering Tithe.
Yeah, the beauty of it is like if you're conniving 3 or 4, you still only pay the 2 mana to do it for 3 or 4. It's not like it's connive 1 a bunch of times, so you'd have to like copy it a bunch.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting card for sure. I I would say I would definitely have to test it out before anything. Like,
Yeah.
I'd be much happier about throwing into the deck, which if it had like vigilance or something, but that wouldn't make sense for the design of this card. What about you, River? What's your off-meta deck that you think should be seeing more play?
Favorite deck of mine. Also a reanimator deck. Ludovic Necrogenius. For those of you that don't know what this card does, it's for a blue and a black. Whenever Ludovic Necrogenius enters the battlefield, hold on, let me pull this up. Or attacks, Millicard, and then you can pay X, blue, blue, black, black, and exile X creature cards from your graveyard, and then you transform Ludovic. That is all one ability. He never targets, so you cannot respond. And then when you transform him, as he transforms, he becomes a copy of a creature card exiled with it, except its name is Olag Ludovic's Hubris. It's a 4/4, and it's a legendary blue and black zombie in addition to its other colors and types, putting a number of +1/+1 counters on Olag equal to the number of creature cards exiled with it. It's a kind of a slower mid-ranged Reanimator list. It basically utilizes value creatures that most decks don't play as much anymore. Things like Dark Confidant or Dothy Voidwalker. Basically, it's just reanimate thing that's very annoying for my opponents. Control the board, win the game because it's difficult for my opponents to interact. I play one of the cards that you said you were trying to test, which is Jingataxis Core Augur. This card is really good. If you make it a turn rotation, you win the game. There isn't a single scenario where you don't. So the issue is it just forces your opponents to interact with it immediately, which the downside to playing Reanimator strats in general is you're going to land something like a Valgavoth, a Toxtrol, or a Jingataxis that is going to force your opponents to interact with it. And then you have to be prepared to protect your stuff and also still interact with the table. So like for every one piece of interaction your opponents have, you should have two. So the deck is like pretty heavy on interaction. It plays very similarly to the way old Niv Mizzet did, whereas primarily interaction and then oops, I win the game. But
the thing I like most about him is that he really gets around like the traditional graveyard hate that we see in cEDH, like Grafdigger's Cage, just does not care.
Yeah, it's neat. I also get to play some cards that I think kind of hurt the meta. I've actually been sitting here tweaking this list while we've been talking. For instance, this is a deck that like I play a single land that wait, do I even play? No, I don't. I don't even play a single land that tests for more than 1 mana. So I can play Damping Sphere without it affecting me. I'm also not a Storm deck, so I'm never chain casting spells. The most I'm ever doing is like maybe a Bin to Yard and then a reanimation spell, which I'll have the mana for. And then I also get access to like Shieldred, Bowmaster, Opposition Agent, the regular ones, Talion. I like playing Archfiend of Depravity because this card's really good right now. Basically, Thrasios decks and Cradle decks cry because you get 2 creatures, so your Cradle will only ever tap for 2. Including your Growing Rights of Itlamok. Actually, how does that work? If I'm the opposing player at their end step, would my Archfiend resolve before their Growing Rights checks again?
So their trigger's going to go into the stack first because they're active player, and then yours
Mine
gets
will
placed
resolve
above
first,
it. Yeah, so it depends on Growing Rights of Itlamok if it checks on resolution, which I assume it does.
I believe it does. I believe it's at the beginning of your end step if you control 4 or more creatures, so it would check to see if you control 4 when it goes right now.
It does say, if you control 4 more creatures. Yeah, so I guess if you have that on the battlefield, they're just never flipping Growing Rights.
Yeah, so that's like kind of my secret tech. I also get like Ghostly Pilfer. I think this card's really good and has been good. It's just breach lines have become less prevalent now that like Thrasios decks could care less about their graveyards, because even ROG Thras decks aren't inherently breach decks. They're just Cradle Storm decks. So, but yeah, it's like a deck I've been wanting to revisit for a while that I think can utilize a lot of cards that most people aren't prepared for. And with each meta, I think Reanimator becomes stronger because cards like Archfiend of Depravity and Toxtrol are always good in stacks metas because creature reliant stacks decks require them to do much. Archfiend puts your opponents in positions where they like almost are forced to keep the cards that like, because no cards necessarily hurt me. Where Archfiend is like, hey, you should keep that rule of law creature out because there's a turbo deck on the field and this other card. Yeah, neither one of these affect me, but like I can at least help you pressure life totals because this thing's a 5/4 flyer, or I have a a 3/4 flyer or 4/5 with death touch. But it's a fun deck. It's something I've worked on for the past like 3 years, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, with the amount of times that you've played Toxtrol against me in that deck, it's what made me want to throw that into my Rafine deck because it's so painful if that goes around a turn cycle. It doesn't look like it on the surface, but it's just game winning.
Yeah, I think kind of like how I feel with Calling Ritual now is how I've felt with Toxtrol anytime I've played it. Toxtrol is just a card that I think my win rate with is insane. Where like if I get to resolve a Toxtrol reanimation, or like when I played Tassiger, a Toxtrol Neo pod target, I'm like I am just winning that game because like what do you do? Like as an opponent, especially in a meta that's severely dense in card advantage accrual, you're locking people out of a lot of early game advantage. Like dorks become useless, general creatures become useless. There aren't many decks that like can do much with a Toxtrol on the field. Even like Rogsai, right? Like if you land an early Toxtrol, well, they just don't really have the mana anymore. And once that, Rograk is gone, what are you going to spend 2 mana and then another 1 mana to make like 4 mana? So you're going to spend 3 mana to make 4 mana on your turn. Like, cool. Now you've cast 2 spells. Like your next one's just going to get Mind Break trapped. Like I don't care anymore.
Yeah, that card, I don't know. I've played against you specifically having it on the battlefield too many times. Whether I be playing any one of my Timna decks, because I have like 7 of them. It's just like whether it be Timna Krark, Timna Rograk, or even Timna Jesko, it's just like every time you have a Toxtrol, I'm just like, well, I'm now playing with less than half of what I wanted.
Yeah. It puts people in uncomfortable positions. It's like that's kind of the epitome of my play style in general. And I think decks that utilize putting people in difficult positions are really good right now. That's why cards like Grand Abolisher and Voice of Victory are so good, because like here's a Voice of Victory. I'm okay with you wasting a tutor to get it off the battlefield when I'm playing it, turn 2 on curve, because you're going to be too scared of letting me untap with it because you can't. Like you can't afford to do that if you have interaction, so you actually have to do something to answer the board, or you can like forego answering me, risk losing to me, and then advance your board state. I think it's like a really neat spot to put people in. But this deck by no means is a fast deck. It is generally a slow deck. It is meant to like I will and almost always see past turn 5. It's like I understand, like this is a deck that you could never put in the hands of somebody who doesn't understand control or other decks at the table, because you really have to understand in order. It's this again the same way old Niv Mizzet used to work, is decks like this, because of how slow they are, you really have to pay attention to what you are countering, what you're interacting with, what you're removing. You have to sandbag very difficult. You have to politic, pretty aggressively. You have to do these things to make sure that you're going the rounds. But decks like this, I think, just are really good right now because we're in a meta where people are, again, foregoing win attempts for card advantage.
I did see the last tournament that I ran. There's actually a decent chunk of people trying to turbo. Now, granted, they're usually doing it on like Rogsai or stuff like that. That's just trying to press the win so fast that you're not ready for it, or you have to mulligan for something that doesn't allow you to actually go the long game. But I feel like with control in general, you just have to do a lot of talking. Like playing control without politicking much with your opponents, it just never feels like a good mixture.
Well, and I have access to some of the best like interaction spells. Like I am a Force of Negation hater, but this
Yeah.
is a good Force of Negation deck, because like I'm never doing anything at flash speed. I don't need to. Like I've never felt like I couldn't win on my turn or make it back to my turn to win. And then, you know, I still play just because I think they are good cards and I need the interaction. Things like Spell Pierce and Miscast are great for, oh, your hand was early Rhystic Study or early Smothering Tithe. Like, cool, I'm just going to Spell Pierce it. Now I don't have to worry about that, and you're out of the game because you kept your entire opening hand based off of that, which is usually a telling sign. Most people are keeping card advantage accrual engines instead of just like getting close. Like, yes, those cards can bring you closer to a win, but they do so at a pace that isn't reliable. And so if you take somebody off of their game, you just take somebody out of the game. And so now all of your counter spells and all of your interaction becomes better. Because Ludovic's a 2-drop, I can play stuff like Flare of Denial or Abjure. I'm not currently on Abjure because this list was last played when the meta was faster.
Yeah.
But with the meta speeding, or with the meta slowing down, Abjure becomes better because like 1 mana sacrificing my 2-drop commander in order to like counter any spell is very relevant. But again, this is a deck where even if I have the interaction, I'm very cautious about using it because I'm not just going to like dispel every single instant, or I'm not going to, you know, mana leak something that like doesn't require me to do that at that moment. Like, you have to cut your opponents off at the correct avenues, and this deck just does that well.
Okay. I guess my question was like, did your view on Ludovic change when Hashaton was printed?
Initially, yes. I think Hashaton's probably better in terms of you do get an additional color and the ability is more abusable. My issue with Hashaton is that without Hashaton, the way people normally build that deck, the deck doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
So whereas I have Ludovic built in such a way where sans my commander, there have been plenty of games where I won't cast my commander until late into the game if I don't need to. Like, if I can play him early and I have no other plays to make, or like I'm holding Fierce Guardianship or Flare of Denial or Abjure or something, sure, I'll cast him, see what I mill, do whatever. But this isn't a commander where like you could put any other blue-black commander in the place of Ludovic, and the deck would still do what it needs to do because it's not built to do it because of Ludovic. Ludovic is just a very good in command zone option. Actually, in my opinion, the best Dimir in command zone option for this strategy because it gets around stuff like Grafdigger's Cage. So somebody plays a Grafdigger's Cage, or if somebody makes it to where, I don't know, I can't touch my graveyard or something, or they ever print a card that's like that, Ludovic just doesn't care. It gets around deflecting SWAT. Like, and yeah, removal on my commander can suck, but usually if I'm activating Ludovic, it's because I have the ability to protect him. So like if I have Bindage and Gataxius, just know like you're losing. Like, if the whole table wants to throw their interaction to stop that from happening, I will force people in those positions in order to advance my game plan. And then again, it's like I run so much interaction and I run other ways to like get that interaction. Obviously, this is a Rhystic Study, Mystic Remora deck, but this is a very good like black market connections deck. You're obviously on the One Ring, and then you get to run other things like I said earlier, Talion. You get access to Dothy, which is nice. Dark Confidants, just a 2 mana, give me stuff. Ghostly Pilfer, people underestimate the draw on that, where just casting your commanders, even if I only draw 3 cards off of Ghostly Pilfer, it's usually worth. And then if I ever get to reanimate Consecrated Sphinx, like, it's just so much accrual, advantage accrual, so.
Yeah, I really like Ghostly Pilfer in a lot of decks. Especially anything that's like reanimate strats or like even Timna Malcolm piles, because like you can discard something to make him unblockable and then use it later. Or oops, I have too many lands in hand anyway, who cares? Cool, I'll draw a card. I think people undervalue it a lot because it has 1 toughness, and they're like, "Oh, it just dies to bowmasters." But like, who cares? There's so many good X1s in the format, and I'm not gonna not play them just because OBM exists. Like, that's just not how we do things.
Yeah, I've kind of just stopped caring about OBM, and I've just played. Well, I'm kind of both ends of it. The cards that I really want to play, because like um, I I I won't pull out because their value by themselves is going to be good enough, even if there is a bowmaster. Like I would say, probably the main one for me that I'm like viewing that as is like Lotho. It's like if they're shooting my Lotho, I generally don't care because like if it's getting me 2 or 3 mana, like I played that to stockpile mana anyway for my next turn, not necessarily to like interact. But like even like the same thing with dorks right now. Like it people right now are playing green right now for all of the mana, and people were complaining about bowmasters for the longest time, hating on green, and like it's not really hating on it enough if green's going to be at the top right now with all these different Thrasios decks.
Yeah. I don't know if people just aren't like killing mana dorks reliably enough, or they're just not. Nobody's wanting to tutor for bowmasters or what. But like, it is really good against like Rog Thras making all their squirrel tokens with Chatterstorm or something like that. You just it's one of those things where like it never feels great to watch somebody else draw cards and then the green deck that's not drawing cards at the moment's the one that's like getting behind on board state, and you're like, well,
Yeah, I just kind of accept it. Like, even in my Cradle deck, I just straight tell people, like, I'm cool never activating my Thrasios and losing the game if it means that, like, you're just going to blow my stuff up. Like, I'm not saying I should never be targeted or my stuff should
Yeah.
never be targeted, but I think people overvalue creatures on board. Like, yeah, if you can get rid of some of my dorks, sure. But chances are, like, I normally don't care. Almost nobody slings with their Orc Army token, anyways. They always hold it up as a blocker. So, like,
Yeah.
yeah, you can kill my Thralls, but are you really going to swing your 8/8 at my Tavesh? Probably not. I'm just going to make 2 more Thralls. And yeah, it's kind of like a lack of people understanding, I guess, threat assessment in a way. But yeah, I've yet to play a game where I'm like, oh man, the Bowmaster's just so oppressive. Like, I think there was one game, and it's just because I messed up playing Teferi, where I basically let a Bowmaster kill me, which was my fault. And then ever since, and I overcorrected after Bowmaster came out, and I changed up my deck a bunch to not be affected by Bowmaster. And I was like, God, this just feels awful. And I realized that, like, oh no, I can actually still just play around Bowmaster. If I have an X spell, if I have infinite mana and an X spell, if I just draw 30 cards, I don't care if they ping me for 30 life, I'm still winning the game. Like, I don't need to see more than like 25, 30 cards to win the game if I have infinite mana. Like, I make
Yeah.
infinite mana and then I go from there. But it's, I don't know, Bowmaster, I like it because I'm playing a Cradle deck, so it's 2 creatures in 1.
Yeah.
But like outside of that, I almost never care about, like, I just don't feel like Bowmaster's as good as people thought it was going to be or people believe it is, because everybody hard indexed on, like, oh no, green's dead now because of Bowmaster, and everyone thought that because Bowmaster didn't get banned that it would be the death of and it's like, yeah, but if you look at the top decks now, a lot of them are green. Like, and most of them don't even play actual dorks. Most of them play like 2 or 3 dorks, maybe. I'm on the high end for a Thrasios deck. I think I play like, actually, let me look it up. I play
You're in
like,
like 5, right? 5 or 6.
I'm on, yeah, way more than most people are. I'm on Birds of Paradise, Bloom Tender, Delighted Halfling, Devoted Druid, Elves of Deep Shadow, Elvish Mystic, Llanowar Elves. I'm on 7. Devoted Druid's like technically a combo piece, so if you can't count that, I'm on 6. But I love dorks because my early turns are just that much better. And like you were talking about earlier, with Thrasios specifically, my mana value that I want to be at is 4. as long as I can make 4 mana early, that's all I care about. So after you've killed my dorks, you're almost never killing my Thrasios with Bowmaster. And as long as I can consistently keep 4 mana on board, I'm fine. I don't need like anything else. But yeah, Bowmaster is just one of those cards for sure. If you have Bowmaster, whatever, it doesn't stop somebody's win attempt almost ever. It's like cool. If you have it for somebody casting a wheel, it's good, but it's never a card you should like tutor. And if you're never tutoring it, the chances of you seeing it consistently in game isn't much. And I think people used to tutor for it because they overvalued how good the card was because of the One Ring and Rhystic study. And now people stopped tutoring for it, which is why you've probably seen like a significant decline in the amount of Bowmasters per game. Because it used to be like, I have a Bowmaster, I have a Bowmaster, I have a Bowmaster. And now it's like maybe one person will play a Bowmaster, and like if the game goes late enough, a second person will. But outside of that, like it's really not that prevalent.
Yeah, I thought with Bowmaster it was weird. Like Bowmaster, I think we can all objectively agree, very, very powerful card. Like it's even played in multiple different formats for 60 card just because it punishes stuff that your opponents do in a favorable way for you, which you have the choice to make. Either throw it at face or get rid of creatures, which is problematic for you. But it's funny that despite people claiming it was beating up on green, I think it was actually beating up on the Esper and Grixis decks more often than the Simic decks. Because it's like the things that you're finding in Grixis or Esper are the things that are drawing so many cards all at once in one turn cycle. Which at that point you have more options with Bowmaster. You can start killing bigger creatures. You can start actually dealing bigger life to somebody. If there's somebody that's turbo at the table, then you can wipe their board and then swing like 15-15 at them, and like you really put them on a clock. But like with all these Simic shells that like they're just looking to build up mana and then turn that into card advantage with their commanders. So it's like in the early game, they're not explosively drawing cards, they're just consistently drawing them.
Well, that and like the Thrasios decks, like you can honest to God just play around it if you see a land and just leave it there and be like, cool, I'll just put this land into play and your Bowmasters didn't do anything whatsoever. Whereas like your Timna piles, they just go Bowmaster ETB, poke your Timna. Oh, you were crazy enough to swing it into me? Cool, put this 1/1 army in front of it. It died. Like, was it fun?
Yeah. I mean, Timna has definitely declined, I think, in usefulness as we get in the mid-range meta.
In a very rough spot right now with all the creatures everywhere, for sure.
Well, specifically, Timna becomes worse when Thrasios becomes better, and vice versa. Like in the metas where Timna is good, Thrasios is bad, and in the metas where Thrasios is good, Timna is bad. And it's funny enough, unironically, because of both of those commanders. Like Thrasios being able to block Timna makes Timna bad as the game goes later, and Timna being able to output a board big enough to swing past something like a Timna makes it really good in Timna's favor. Because if you never have to swing Timna to lose it, you're like fine. That's why like evasive stuff used to be really good when Thrasios was bad. Which is why I used to think Ghostly Pilfer was like a really good card in those decks, because for discarding a card, or for discarding a card, it becomes unblockable. So this is an unblockable attacker. I go down a card, but cool, I'm going to discard this land and I'm going to draw something else I'd rather have. And you had a lot of that type of stuff, or when people were playing Dragon Rage Channeler and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's my baby right there.
Yeah, those cards made the deck really good. That's another reason why like Mockingbird was so good when it came out. Yes, clones are great, but Mockingbird wasn't necessarily great because it was a clone. Mockingbird was great because it was a clone with flying. And so in Timna decks, a clone with flying is another Timna attacker. Or like a Ledger, like the reason Ledger Shredder or Fairy Mastermind are good in Timna decks aren't because of their inherent abilities, it's because they're Timna attackers. And they just also inherently do a thing outside of the Timna game plan, which is still good. But when decks went away from trying to put evasiveness on creatures to get card advantage through Timna became bad because, well, if you're going to cut all your like mini evasive things, well, cool. Your Tymna's never getting through because here's a Thrasios, and here's a Yoshi, or here's a Maelstrom Wonder, or whatever.
Maelstrom Wanderer. Wow, I haven't seen him in a while.
Hey, that card apparently is. I've heard a lot of grinders talking about how good that card is right now.
And we're talking about Yidris, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to love that deck. That was so funny. It's like here's an Imp Seal. Oh no, I just got a Profane Tutor. Let's go.
Turbo Tamura, baby.
Mm-hmm. I guess since we're talking on this now that we're really discussing like deck dichotomy, what are some like major points that you guys would say is like the starting definition of what a cEDH deck should be looking like? Because right now in a mid-range meta, I think it opens the door to more decks being playable, but like is cEDH viability dependent on like the meta alone, or are we looking at something stronger than 99? I know we collectively have talked about on the podcast before about Commander is like is a very important part of determining viability because it's something you always have access to. But what do you guys think on that?
So for me, if it's in the command zone, it needs to be efficient either as a like win attempt, whether that's a combo piece or just like excessive card advantage that's reliable, like Thrasios, where like you don't have to worry about going into combat and it's very hard to interact with, like and just having mana up all the time. Um and if it's like unique in what it does, or if it's like the best in what it does, then obviously that's like something to look at. And like you were saying, like the meta call, it really just depends on what the meta looks like. Like if miraculously we end up in a turbo meta, like is Thrasios too slow at that point, for example? Things like that. And then just interaction points can be a big one. If your main plan for your commander is like, oh, I have to like Stellally, for example, where like you're trying to copy spells on the stack and you just lose to a well placed counter spell, like it might be a really good, like high powered deck, but you're just asking to get blown out.
Like for me, whenever I'm viewing a commander, I think in terms of cEDH viability, like there's two main things. It's card advantage and mana that we're all always considered about. Like how efficient can our cards be played while doing the most amount possible for us. So card advantage or mana, whether you'd be looking at Thrasios, like Tymna, Kinnan, like some of the other big decks, they're either focusing on having the mana or card advantage, but card advantage kind of like reigns supreme a lot of the time. And before in other metas, we saw like haymakers being important. Like with the printing of Slicer not too long ago, when that came out, people were like, "Oh my god, what's going on? We're dying to commander damage really fast." And they're just like, "Well, if we just answer the commander, we're okay." I mean, but there were other beatdown decks, like even during the whole dockside meta, like Jetmir was popular at one point as just a deck where you play win conless and you were just like, I'm going to put as many creatures on the board as possible and then turn them sideways and try to do 120 damage. Like right now, what are we looking at for commanders? Like,
So I feel like Kinnan's just insanely good and has been for a long time because it both makes mana and generates card advantage by without even casting spells by activating his ability at instant speed. And any good Kinnan pilot early is just gonna keep putting mana dorks into play to generate even more advantage, and then just go absolutely nuts. And you good luck. So that's definitely like a unique thing. One of the decks I'm working on that I really feel like has potential. It's not exactly refined enough for me to like be comfortable taking it to an event quite yet, though. Is Kefka. It's a Grixis control deck that has a really interesting ETB and attack trigger that makes your opponents discard cards, and like you discard one as well, which kind of lets you backdoor into Reanimator strategies a little bit, as well as it draws cards based on the amount of types that were discarded between the four of you. So you can really draw multiple cards, and it's on a 4/5 body. So like
Mhm.
you're not just getting blown out because you drew 2 or 3 cards by an OBM or something like that, or anything. And it's just like very unique in what it does and then how it plays.
What about you, River? What do you think is a big determining factor for cEDH viability?
Mindset. It's
Mindset?
100% always mindset for me. I think that, like, yeah, there are commanders that aren't cEDH viable, but like, for instance, the example I've used the most is Daughter of Autumn. It's a dog shit card, but it's like such a good example for like this is a decent benchmark. So it's like a white green commander that does essentially nothing. And could you build a deck that could win? Sure. Anybody can build a deck that can win or do decent in cEDH, but it's all about consistency and understanding the overall metagame. Like, I played Valentin for a while as a turbo deck because
Mhm.
yeah, I thought Rogsai was too mainstream, and I don't play mainstream decks. And the big thing for Valentin was like people would see it and be like, "Oh wow, so it like you're doing nothing," and then I'd win like turn 2 or 3, and they'd be like, "Holy crap! Like
Mhm.
how are you like sneaking wins?" It's like, "Oh, because I know that you're advancing your game plan the first 3 turns of the game, so I'm just going to abuse that." And then people eventually would get smart and start like playing towards that. So then I had to play more meticulously about when I'd go for win attempts. Like, I remember being in games with Kay a bunch where I wouldn't do anything for the first 5 turns of the game. And it was like, I hate this because now I have to keep holding up my counter spells, and all these people are going to try and get away with things that I can't let them get away with. Then River's going to untap and win because he knows that like all he has to do is wait. And of course, nobody's applying pressure on the board, so I don't really have to care about my life total. But for me, it's literally mindset and consistency. What is your deck aiming to do? Is your deck able to do those things consistently? Using Ludovic as an example, um, I think most people could look at the list, and if you take me, the pilot, out of that list, or you take my name off of that deck, and you put any random person who's never played cEDH, you would never say that list was cEDH viable. But a lot of that has to do with like people who have played with me will tell you that deck is a cEDH deck. People who, but they think it's a cEDH deck not because the deck itself is cEDH, but because I play cEDH. So like I understand the meta in a way where like I'm not throwing my counter spells at everything that looks scary. I'm planning my stuff out, and I'm making sure that my opponents aren't doing things that are going to sky or like propel them so far into the game that I can't catch up because my deck's not built to accrue advantage like other decks are. So for me, it is mainly a mindset. I think you can take just about any decent commander and play it within the confines of cEDH. You just have to understand how that deck needs to change throughout the seasons. And sometimes some decks just don't work in every season. It would be like keeping your heat on during the summertime. That's not smart because during the summertime you want to stay cooler, so you're going to want to turn on the AC. But if you don't turn on the AC, you're going to burn up because you're like in an environment that you're forcing yourself to be in that you can't be in realistically. But yeah, it's just because there are decks that I genuinely believe probably shouldn't see play in cEDH.
Ooh, you got any hot
But
takes?
no, it's more so. Shout out to Anna. We have a player in the server who plays like a lot of off-meta decks that she will win with, but the issue for me again is like consistency. And if like winning with a deck doesn't necessarily make it good for cEDH, it just makes it win sometimes in cEDH.
Mhm.
And and vice versa, just because a deck, let's say, loses a bunch in cEDH doesn't necessarily make it not cEDH. Like if Rogsai loses 20 games in a row, it doesn't mean Rogsai is not a good cEDH deck. It just means that like there's more compounding variables to that. It's kind of like the whole parasitic versus non-parasitic deck theology, where is your deck getting wins because people aren't respecting you at the table? Which, if your deck is doing that, if people were to respect you at the table, and be prepared for what you're doing, are you actually going to win those same games? And you can get away with snaking wins. That's, a perfectly fine strategy, but that doesn't work forever. It's why flavor of the month commanders come and go so frequently, because you can have like God, the ones I'm thinking of are actually, I think, are going to be really good in cEDH. But let's use like VV as an example, right?
Okay.
The deck doesn't do a whole lot without VV because it's meant to have its commander on the battlefield. It's essentially an Izzet deck. Most Izzet decks function this way. So actually, almost every Izzet deck functions this way. I think it is very hard to build a Sans commander Izzet deck because having access to something in the command zone that grants you some part of advantage within the game is very key. Like Yaruth, the one that whenever you draw, exile the top card of your library instead, and you can play it. Riel, the one where you discard a bunch of cards and then redraw the cards that you discarded once each turn. So you can utilize things like Firestorm or the 1-mana blue one that allows you to redraw a bunch of cards or whatever. But again, those decks are not good without their commanders out and do struggle. However, understanding how to play those games and adapt to what your opponents are prepared for is like really key. So like, is your deck reliant on your commander? You should probably play Spellskite, or you should probably play like even Lightning Greaves to an extent. Yeah, like you should play something to protect your commander, or you should be prepared to throw interaction at keeping your commander on the board. Because if you think to yourself, I have a mana drain and a delay in my hand, or let's say mana drain and a dispel, and somebody puts Pongify on your commander. Well, you could choose to let your commander die, but now you have to spend the next turn cycle hoping that your opponents aren't trying to force, because you will have to answer that. And then by the time it comes back to your turn, like even if you replay your commander, are you prepared to pass your turn? And do you have anything to then stop, either another win attempt or somebody who's now fully set up and you've just spent a whole turn cycle without your commander, technically too, because you need your commander for the following turn after having to recast it for 2 additional mana. But a lot of that to me is just mindset. Obviously, there are decks that, again, are never going to really see cEDH play and shouldn't.
Yeah.
But outside of, like, I would say, like, the majority of commanders are bad for cEDH, but I think there is a good chunk of commanders that that leave a lot of room to be explored.
Yeah, that's fair. I think there's a lot that's not explored right now. I know I talked with you about this, Mark. I think it was last night at the last event that I ran. There was a guy that was legitimately playing Turbo Selesnya, and I played with him the day before the event. He was practicing, and then they just needed a 4th. And as a judge, I'm not playing in the event, so like I'll play some extra Magic games to like pass the time to get things going. And like he was doing really consistent with it. I was just like, it's like if he keeps doing well like he was doing in those practice games, he's gonna do well in the tournament. And he won an LED. Like he did well in the event because he's like playing to his strength, which I think is like another important topic, but I think for another video. But like there, like the idea of Turbo Selesnya is just like awkward when I bring it up to people, because it's just like Selesnya doesn't really have the turbo options really outside of dorks to really like regularly progress your own mana.
Well, there's also like 2 commanders. It's Sithis and Sithis, right?
Well,
Yeah,
he was
just one.
he was playing. I forget the name of the mono white partner, the one that literally nobody plays, and then he was playing that with Kodama, and he just like. He would almost never cast his commanders, and if he did, it was really just Kodama. Like
I
he
have
didn't care about
seen
the other
like
one.
Safi, Eric's daughter.
Yes,
Turbo,
Safi and
combo
Sithis are
line.
the 2 big ones.
Safi is like actually fast and consistent. The
one that I like when it comes to Selesnya is actually just playing Emil as the commander. Like Like there's a lot of ETB effects that aren't being hated on because like who right now wants to play Torpor Orb if you're like specifically only hating on Thoracle? Like I guess you could also hit like Cloud of Fairies and Ewit, but like they can just pivot to a Boro Breeze Caller and just ignore it entirely.
Yeah, it's just
Like
not worth it at that point.
yeah. And so just like I've seen people do that. They go like, yeah, evoke a solitude, tap my cradle, flicker it, and they go respond, and you go flicker it again in response, and you just clear the board. They have a Rex Sage, cool. There's no Ristic Study or anything on the battlefield. They can just sit there and play that game. And I think the last time I saw someone play it, they were playing cards like Wall of Omens to just repeatedly draw through their deck because Emil obviously doesn't have card advantage. But there's a lot of things I think that people are just following the meta too much and not exploring on their own.
Yeah, you kind of hinted at it earlier, but like knowing your playstyle is very, very important. And again, I know we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on it, but I definitely like agree with you that that's just a very big factor as well in determining like what commander or what style of deck you want to play.
See, I do want to spend time on it. I
Oh,
think
I do. It's
I
just that we-
genuinely think no, we got time. We got time. Playstyle is such an important and impactful like part of growth in cEDH where I always tell people like there are things I do within games that I do not suggest other people do. It is like I will pass on a game losing spell without making any comments because I expect somebody else to be able to answer it. Are there times where I could absolutely lose the game because of that? Absolutely. But I take that risk a lot. And I don't get punished. That you guys have watched it. I do not get punished that often for that, if at all. Like because if somebody else also doesn't want to have to lose, they have to then force certain things or do certain things that puts me in a better position to then react. Like if my other two opponents have to throw spells at a game-winning thing, like a Thassa's Oracle ETB on the stack with whatever, and I'm holding Tishana's Tidebinder, I'll let them fight over it, and I'll be like, yeah, I got nothing for the Demonic Consultation, yeah, that resolves. Cool, Tishana's Tidebinder, our Trick Bind. And then it's like, oh, you had that the whole time? And it's like, yeah, but I'm going to let you waste all of your interaction because now we're going into my turn, and now I can just win the game because I don't have to worry about interaction. Like, I had the thing to stop them, but I'm not telling you that because if I just give that information, like, don't worry, guys, don't waste your counter magic, and I go into my turn, I can't do anything that game because I just allowed my opponents to hold on to key pieces that like I don't want them to hold on to. Now, that's not always the case. Like if it's like let's say it's stopping a turbo player, and I know that like I'm in order for me to untap, I need my other opponent with interaction to stop the on stack thing that's going to happen from the next player. I'll talk about that, and then I'll Tishana's, getting rid of the Thassa's Oracle ETB, getting the turbo player out of the game, and then making it back to my turn. But I think a lot of people too often don't think about those scenarios, and a lot of people don't like being in those scenarios. People very much dislike being in lose-lose situations, which is like, I'll tell people, I don't put myself in lose-lose situations. I'll just lose. Like, I'm okay with not choosing the winner of a game just because, like, oh, well, you have to do this here. I don't. It is okay to lose a game. I think that's something that the cEDH community as a whole, especially tourney players, need to get a lot better with, is you need to get way more comfortable losing games. Because at the end of the day, you cannot answer everything. And I'm not going to. Like, I'm not going to, like, let's say I'm last in turn order, and the blue farm player has 15 cards in hand. The Rogside player is going for a win. Another player has a Ristic Study, so it's storming off. They're getting, like, 5+ cards out of this turn, and I'm sitting on 4 cards in hand. This has actually been like a situation I've been in tournaments before, where I'll look at it and I'll have 2 pieces of interaction, but I'll straight tell the table, I was like, even if I have interaction, there's no way I'm answering this. So if you guys don't have it, we lose. And they're like, yeah, but if you don't want to lose, and it's like, I'm fine with losing. It's not that I want to lose. It's that I'm not going to save you so you can win the game. And then I'll usually follow that up with like, if you can't win the game, show me your hand. Like, if you're not going to show me your hand, if you're not going to feed me information, if you're just going to relentlessly get away with a certain thing that's going on in the game, then I'm not going to save you. You should save yourself. You also have to make the game decisions to make it back to your turn. And I'm not at, 4 or 5 cards in hand going to be like, sands or, no Ristic Study, no nothing on board, just like maybe a Thrasios activation, right? I'm not even going to activate Thrasios. I'm not going to be in that position where, yeah, don't worry, I'll tap out going into the 15 card blue farm player's hand. Like, I'm never going to do that. But that's again, like, those play styles are something I've understood about myself and how I play the game. It's just, you have to learn how you feel most comfortable within a game and play to that. But again, most people don't. They just play to what they believe is the objectively correct thing to do. And yes, that can win you games, but there are a lot of games you're going to lose because you're going to run into people who, if you try those things against like top players in the format, where, let's say you're, take me out of the situation. You have like Freedom Waffle in my seat in the same situation I'm in, versus a blue farm player who, let's say they're newer to tournaments, and so they're going to keep passing priority because they've seen him reveal his hand to somebody else, showing potentially that he has interaction, and so they're going to try and bully him for it. He's just going to tell you to get fucked. Like, he's not going to let you bully him into that situation because he knows you can't lose the game either. And in Swiss, those situations work well for people, but once you get out of Swiss in your top 16 matches, there is no drawing. So it's literally just like, you win your top 16 match or lose.
Like, when I went back to Shorekai after the whole dockside thing, like, you had, like, you in particular, River, then Mark started doing it to me more often after seeing it working for you. Like, you had to, like, you made me rethink, like, how I'm playing control. Not entirely, but just the idea of when I'm interacting. Now, granted, because we know each other, you guys do put me in the annoying situation where you guys know I have the answer, and you go, like, I ain't doing nothing about it. I know you got it. And I'm like, I didn't say anything, though. You're just like, yeah, but you have, like, 3 things for this. And I'm like, not every time. But granted, I do, but, like, not every time. Like,
more often than not. So, like, again, it's just like a hedge your bet situation where, like, statistically you have it, and if you don't, like, I guess it is what it is, because your deck, especially your short guy deck, like, there's what, 20 counterspells in that freaking deck?
I mean, there's a lot of interaction in that deck. That's for sure. I'm down to 30 instance. I was at 33 at one point, but now there's new artifacts and that new Tezzy. We can talk on that later when the set fully comes out, because there might be other nice pieces that I get that I'm hoping for. Like,
Actually, one just got spoiled.
Gods, bro.
Like, one just
dude,
got spoiled. That's probably really good in your deck, by the way.
Yeah, somebody added me on it, but like I think it was
Sharambe.
Yeah, like I haven't looked at it yet, but I was just like, somebody said there's something else for me, and like I have to contain myself when I get new pieces for sure. Like, for example, that Monument 2 Endurance, I loved seeing that card when it came out, but like the meta was too fast for it. I'm just like, whoa, I may have drawn 1 card off of it or made 1 treasure. Yay! Now we're in mid-range meta. I put it back in the deck. Card's awesome. I love just being like on somebody else's turn and be like, yeah, activate Shorekai. Cool. Trigger Monument 2 Endurance after looking at my hand and seeing what's going to happen the next couple turns. But like, yeah, do I want the mana here, or do I need this 1 extra card? Just like, no, I'll go for the mana. Probably have to interact. And like, the card feels great. Like, I'll draw like 3 to like 9 cards off of it, like in any typical game. Like, or make like I've actually been using the mana portion on it a lot. Except when I have Unwinding Clock. Unwinding Clock is just that, and Seedborn Muse. They're just crazy good cards right now. Like, just being able to just repeatedly do stuff in everybody's turn. It's a very strong play pattern right now that I wish there was better tools to play against it. But I'm starting to see some of like the terrifying things where like somebody plays a Seedborn Muse, you go into the next turn and somebody's trying to clone it. And then there's another clone the next turn, and it's just over and over again. Then all of a sudden, everybody has Seedborn Muses, and it's just like everyone's untapping, and it's just like those games. I would just want to scream, dude.
This is a topic for another time, but I actually think clones are cope. either play cards in your deck that help you win the game, or stop playing clone effects. Like with Steel Enchantment or Mirror Maid or fucking the clones in general. I cannot stand them because there's too many. Like I don't play that stuff anymore, and I haven't missed it because I would rather just play something that makes my game plan better.
I
Yeah.
love Steel Enchantment specifically, just if I'm playing a control deck. I love it specifically because not only does it like deal with the Ristic study, but it's pretty much a 2-for-1 unless they have a specific answer to blow up the Steel Enchantment. Just because, like, not only did you deny them the Ristic study, you now have it yourself. Whereas,
Mhm.
like, the clone effects, I'm kind of less so on because, like, you're only getting it after they already had it. So, unless you're cloning your own stuff, you're just playing catch up the entire time.
Yeah. I mean,
That's how I feel about Steel Enchantment, though. For me, like even I have watched so many people like I'll have a Ristic study. Somebody will have not that many cards in hand and Steel Enchantment my Ristic study, and they don't play a single spell the rest of the game, and we still lose. Like
mhm.
it's like, man, that Steel Enchantment could have been something absolutely game breaking for the game, and instead it was, oh, I want your Ristic study because you've drawn 3 cards, and then they might draw 2 cards, and then we'll still lose. And it's like, or I'll be like, hey, I have this interaction here. Like, if you take this, I'm less incentivized to use it. And they'll be like, well, no, just go ahead and use it. And it's like, okay, cool. Yeah, I'll stop your Steel Enchantment. So I still get to keep my thing. You wasted your whole turn because you were expecting to get a thing you didn't get. We still lose because Steel Enchantment did nothing. Like, I
Yeah.
I have hated Steel Enchantment so
Yeah,
much.
it's definitely a card that has a really high ceiling, but it also has a terribly low floor.
Incredibly low floor. Like,
Yeah, like
it's probably one of the highest ceiling cards in the format because of things like Ristic Study and Fish. I've seen some crazy things in tournaments, but again, the reason I'm seeing that stuff in tournaments is because, again, people are foregoing win attempts or board presence for value engines. And so everybody feels comfortable playing the cards that clone the value engines. And cool, we can play that way. But at the end of the day, like, I think most guys, I've just, I'm hoping one day I'll see it be used effectively against me. Until I do, my thoughts on the card are just so low, which is crazy because I see it work well for other players. But I've been
mhm.
in games where someone's like, God, I've had the Steel Enchantment in my hand for 3 games. I thought somebody would have a Ristic Study or a Fish by now. It's like, you kept that hand because you specifically wanted Steel Enchantment to steal something, and now your game plan sucks because you didn't get that.
I think the meta shift has a very large impact on that card because like if you're in a meta where like Esper or the Grixis side of the color pie are the dominating decks, then like those decks utilize the strongest enchantments so much that they'll tutor for it to use that card to win the game. Ristic Study, Smothering Tithe, or even like One Ring, for example. These are all things that people want to copy. But for Steel Enchantment, it's really grabbing Ristic, um, and I've seen it happen with Necropotence, but that's usually a very rare occurrence now. And then Smothering Tithe being like the big three. But like if Simic's at the top, like it's really just Thrasios that's there. They're just like building up mana and then having a cradle. And like you could look at the Thrasios player and be like, wow, I can take your Enduring Vitality. I have 2 creatures. It's like
Yeah,
versus it doesn't really do anything right now if like Simic's up top, like on top.
yeah,
Granted,
Simic shells for sure.
yeah, like the other decks are still there, like Blue Farm. I still hate how popular the deck is. Like my big like I love Blue Farm. I love playing it, but I hate the mirror match so much with Blue Farm because it's like, okay, who had the better engines? Like, okay,
After playing Blue Farm for like the first 3 years of me being in the format, and even like a little bit after Dockside and everything got banned, trying to play Blue Farm in this meta just feels like a coping mechanism or a crutch. Like,
mhm,
yeah, it's 4-color good stuff. It doesn't have the synergy that it used to because, again, like, the attackers aren't great right now just because
mhm.
there's so many creatures in the way. And, like, yeah, you can play Fire Covenant or something to that effect. But nobody's trying to play a Fire Covenant so that your Timna stuff can get through, because like you pretty much have to hit multiple people's creatures, and pretty much all of them. You're asking somebody to counter it after you just paid 15 life. Like, good luck.
Yeah. And like, funny enough, I genuinely think that card is really good right now. The issue is that like it's a card that makes you do it at the appropriate time. It's such a sandbag card, and it's no longer supposed to be used as a wipe anymore. And
Yeah.
I think where Blue Farm excels now is, I said this before, I'll say it again. One day I'll take it to a tournament and go 0-5, and we'll all laugh about it. Like, Timna Crom is a good deck, not because of Timna or Crom. Like, the deck is just good because it has the correct colors. And the best way to play the deck currently, funny enough, is the faster variant of Blue Farm, or the harder control variant of Blue Farm. So you're either playing Maddie's list of, I'm playing Glasses of Urza, I'm playing the card that steals your people's draws, Notion Thief. And you're doing like the Opus Thief style of stuff, which again, that style is great, but it's good without the commanders ever being casted. Or you're playing the faster version, which is using the Ragavans and the Dragon Rage channelers and stuff like that in order to accrue early advantage, and you're really holding your counter spells for when attempts. You're trying to land the Smothering Tithe or land the Rhystic Study early to garner enough advantage. But again, that style's good without the commanders. It's just one of those decks where there's not a good middle ground anymore. That you either need to be doing one or the other, and in both of those variants, I think fall short to decks that are okay with just sitting on mana, because they have to rely, like, those decks have to rely heavily on praying your opponents allow you to land a Valley Floodcaller or a Born Upon the Wind to win over top of somebody else, which means you're just sitting there doing like nothing all game. And if that's happening and you end up being the last person to resolve spells, congrats, but game's probably going to time, and that play pattern really only works in top 16.
It's definitely interesting with everything that's going on. I think the meta is still like shaping up as everybody is testing their various Thrasios deck right now, as well as like their own different like meta busters. I've been seeing a lot of different decks that that I don't necessarily like, but I have to acknowledge that there is a place for them, especially right now in this meta. Like a card you brought up earlier, like Kefka. I hate the card. I just can't stand it. But that's coming from somebody where like I don't like commanders above 4 mana. They're
Right.
like I play like 2 commanders that are above 4 mana, and it's because of the commander specifically that is just like for example, I don't play Divot. I just don't ever want to have a 6 mana commander. If you see me playing a Draxa, ask me if I'm okay. Like I
know the answer.
Atrax is
Yeah, like-
such a bad commander right now too.
Yeah, like I just love having access to like something regularly that I'm going to build my game plan around. Like my Shurikai deck. We've talked about it, I think, multiple times already on the podcast, because it's just like it's a unique deck, and it fits the parameters of what I think control should be in cEDH, which we haven't talked on, but I think it would be good for another episode as like what allows you to play control in cEDH. But long story short, which we'll cover it in a different video, that I think you need to be in like max 2 colors for maximum efficiency, one of which being blue and you having a supporting color. And like a cheap commander that gives you card advantage and provides you some way to get to your win. And with Shurikai, that's just a polymorph. Short answer. I want to like have one card, put it together, win me the game. I'm fine with that. Like if like it's a good way to put it. Like that deck also has a 4 mana commander, but I'm on effectively like 4 soul lands. I'm on extra rocks. Like I am playing so many things to try to get this out and like make that a part of my game plan. But it's just like anytime I look at something that's like 5 mana, 6 mana, or 7 mana as a commander, outside of something like Krek, because that one's effectively 4, but you can just ignore the Phyrexian pips. Like the reliability you have to getting to that commander, like in every single game, and having it work, just at least in my experience, I can never get something like that going.
Yeah, it's definitely not like commander centric. The list I'm working on, for example, like I don't play Fierce Guardianship or Deadly Rollick or even Deflecting Swat because Kefka is 5 mana. I'm not reliably getting it out by turn 3. Like I don't want to have to Dark Writ into Kefka, or like I mean I would if I had it, but I don't want to like have to mulligan because I can't turn 3 a Kefka, for example. But it is built to like just have interaction in spades, just like a million answers to everything, or at least tries to, and then like figure out a win, whether it's intuition or gifts ungiven or just a Thoracle line. It also like does manage to fuel its own breach, as well as like it's not in white, so you don't get your silence effects, but like your opponents have 1 and 2 cards in hand apiece. Like the chances of them continually just hanging on to interaction while not getting to play the game because they have to discard all their stuff. Like, sure, we can all go to top deck mode. I promise I'm gonna do it better.
Yeah.
I don't know. As a Thrasios player,
Yeah. I mean, that's why, like, I do play like Curse Totem and Damping Sphere in the deck
Yeah.
too. Like,
Are you play Damping Sphere in a Grixis deck?
yeah, because like it's not a storm deck. Sure, I might end up messing up my own breach line like 10 turns later, but I wouldn't have even gotten to those turns without it in this meta. So like it's just a necessary evil.
if you're playing like Damping Sphere and stuff like that, depending on the type of removal you're playing, like if you're on stuff like Winds of Rebuke or so in a deck like Marks, you probably don't want to be on
What, Into the Flood Maw versus
yeah,
Vapor?
yeah, Into the Flood Maw, versus Chant of Vapor, because it's like, oh cool, you bounced my Kefka. I don't care. I'm literally gonna recast it, and you're gonna hate your life.
It's like, thanks for the extra triggers, guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and it's great because it's like, yeah, I'll bounce my Damping Sphere, and then I'll like bounce these rocks to make some more mana. Like that's a deck where you genuinely could get away with playing a Chant of Vapor. As we all here know, I am a huge hater of Chant of Vapor. But in a deck like that, you want things that can target your own stuff, so you can like. You're not playing any activated creature abilities, probably, right? Like
not very many. I played like the Go-Go and like 1 or 2 more, but nothing like backbreaking. I'm not comboing with any of them.
Yeah, exactly. So your whole thing is like, yeah, if I have to bounce this, I can. And if you want to waste a counterspell to bounce my own Dampening Sphere that's also affecting you, you can do that. But cool, I'll just sit here and then I'll pay 2 mana for a Breach and then exile 3 cards, and for 2 mana, I'll recast Chain of Vapor targeting my Damping Sphere on a later turn. Like, it's one of those play patterns that you can realistically do in a deck that isn't like as affected by stuff like that. So it's just, and Winds of Rebuke is obviously like a decent card in Breach decks, just not highly playable because most people would rather be on 1 mana stuff that like obviously doesn't hit their own things.
So since we're on the topic of Damping Sphere, and we've talked at length this episode about Cradle in general, the big thing that we were going to talk about for our last topic today is, should we start considering forms of land removal or even denial in like this Cradle like dense meta? Historically, outside of cEDH, there have always been like some sort of measures to like keep Cradle in check. But in a format like cEDH, I think one that a lot of people have been talking about is the Wasteland and Strip Mine like playability right now. Which because you have 3 opponents, like choosing to lose a land to take somebody off of one of their 2 cradles specifically, and they're usually on like Noxious Revival or other things like that. And if you're not playing a cradle deck yourself, your options that you have to go get Cradle are much lower. Like you'd have to start looking at Expedition Map, maybe even Urza Saga to get your Expedition Map more often. Or if you're in black but not green, like would you ever be in the situation to use a black tutor to go get a strip mine or wasteland? It's like probably not. So like the two we have talked about as being like Curse Totem and Damping Sphere being like the two most effective versions of dealing with all this Thrasios stuff right now. Like Curse Totem obviously smacks Thrasios really hard, also stops the Bora Breeze Caller, while also technically stopping the Valley Flood Caller loops. But Damping Sphere just innately prevents Storm and then prevents Cradle from making lots of mana. And I believe it was last episode we talked on the playability of Abrupt Decay versus Astrophy, because it can actually hit a land while Abrupt Decay can't. So it's like you're choosing uncounterability versus being able to actually hit somebody's cradle. And Beseiju being like the prime thing that is already one of the best cards like to play in your mana base for cEDH and utilize like a spell to that can deal with Cradle, but like should we be looking at things other than those to help try to deal with Cradle? Maybe if you're in like a lower color deck, like is it worth it playing Strip Mine or Wasteland?
I think that if you're in a deck that is, like you said, like 1 to 2 colors, or especially like the first one that just comes to mind for me is like Gitrog Monster. If I'm playing the Gitrog Monster and I know, like, yes, it's a really explosive deck, but I don't want to sit here and have to try to combo through Thrasios drawing 1 to 2 extra cards a turn rotation, or God forbid they get a hold of a Seedborn Muse. Like, I would much rather, because they play like Exploration and stuff as well, so like, you're not just losing out on mana when you're already playing cards like Life from the Loam or Exploration in those like 1 to 2 color green decks. Lumra plays it. They play Wasteland and Strip Mine both, I believe, normally. Granted, I know they play like 45 to 50 lands, so they just don't care.
Yeah, they're on the lot. Yeah.
But if you're playing something that like benefits from being able to recur your lands or sacrificing them with like the Gitrog Monster, since you will draw a card if Gitrog is out, and then you do that, then like sure. But if you're just quote unquote like doing the fair thing and just playing your one land for turn and Wasteland or Strip Mining a Cradle, like that person better already be extremely ahead of the table, or you're not really doing yourself any favors.
Yeah, I'm not big on targeted land removal. The only exception being Assassin's Trophy, because it doesn't specify it's any permanent. So it's way more versatile. The thing I dislike is in cEDH specifically, you're already on so low lands, and the like. So I was looking it up the other day. There are not that many spells that destroy a land. Like, there are very few, and they all suck. Like, drastically suck. Yeah. So like, for me, that really only leaves the lands that do it, and then you're just going negative in mana. Like, unless, like Mark said, you can recur the lands. Where I think people should be is, I think this is a really good time for decks to be in 2 colors and to play the moon effects. Like, being able to play, like, they all went away because Turbo was obviously like so fast that moon effects just didn't matter. And then after that, people weren't like looking for moon effects early, so decks were establishing their board states or landing a Smothering Tithe, and then again, it's just no longer good because now they have access to the mana they want. But I think deck like low color, like 2 color specific decks, mainly like blue red, or red X decks that can afford to land a moon effect. I think that's kind of the way to attack the meta. Where, for instance, in Rogthras, that deck does not use red mana, like at all. It quite literally only casts blue or green spells. So if you shut its lands off entirely, which you're going to, I think lists are still on 2 basics. Yeah, so they're on Earthcraft. But even then, like, that's never a thing I've noticed that they're looking for early. It's like oops, I've hit Earthcraft and now I can Earthcraft.
Yeah.
So even then, it's like when are you casting Earthcraft? And if you don't have Enduring Vitality on the field, you're kind of locked out of mana. But shutting off Cradle is just so huge. Even if you're forcing Thrasios to only activate once, like let's say Sans Seedborn Muse, right? Let's say they would have had the mana to activate Thrasios 10 times, or not 10 times, like let's say 3 times, right? And now they can only activate it once. That's like really good for you because yeah, they're still ahead, but they're not so far ahead that you can't catch up. And now they're forced to interact in a way where they have to get rid of the Blood Moon to go off. I think again, like Damping Sphere is a good one. Blood Moon, Harbinger of the Sea is a rough one because a lot of decks play blue. But even Harbinger of the Sea, like I'll give you access to blue mana to still cast your counter spells if that means that like you can't activate your Cradle or like your Growing Rights of Itlamok or whatever. Because if you're constantly tutoring for Cradle and I land anything that shuts your Cradle off, we're in business. That's like really good for you.
Yeah. The backside of the moon effects for me is like once you resolve a blood moon, like you kind of have to be prepared to play table police a little bit. Just because like nobody's going to want to save the table, so to speak, if they can't even play the game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, sure, they might untap 3, 4, 5, 6 more times, but like, are they really doing anything meaningful when they don't have their colors anymore? With that being said, what do you think about like Alpine Moon, for example? It's like 1 mana Cradle specific at that point, and then like
Yeah,
you
where
just don't screw people out of the game entirely.
yeah, that one doesn't change the typing on it. I think it just like removes its abilities and says it can only tap
Yeah, it
like
just
a
makes it
colorless.
tap for a mana of any color instead of like.
Oh, mana of
the
any color. Okay, I thought it was colorless.
No.
I mean, as a 1 mana option in red, that's an enchantment, so it's hard to remove. So it's like they're looking at a bounce effect that's like into the Flood Maw, Abrupt Decay, Astrophy, and then Besage You.
Yeah, or like a Baby Rift, I guess.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't hate it. I mean, it's definitely something that, like, a Cradle deck where if they see it hit the stack and, like, they look at you in your eyes, like, they know what it's going to be named. Like, what it's going to be named. Like, if they have the mental misstep, it's getting flung at it 100%.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, like, I think we're in a meta right now, especially if you're in an area with, like, a lot of green. Like, my immediate local area, like, they're turning more and more green as, like, the months go on, and it's kind of annoying.
Even ours, like, I used to hate on Submerge so hard because I was like, nobody freaking plays green. This card's just terrible. I'm never paying 5 mana for this. Like, no, just cut it. I'm tired of looking at it. It's actually, like, relevant now, which is crazy because I wouldn't have said that 3 months ago.
Yeah, I am one to Submerge a Seaborn Muse, like, just because it's practically free. I just go, it's like, oh, you play Seaborn Muse? Cool. End step, put it back in your hand, let's continue gaming. Like, Submerge is definitely useful for that.
I love
But
it when people tap out for Seedborn Muse during their turn, or like play Seedborn and get greedy and like go for value thinking they're untapping and you just bounce it or kill it.
yeah.
And they're like, oh, my Seedborn, I can't like protect anything anymore. I'm like, you should have thought about that. I hope you lose the game now.
Yeah, I usually have a chat with them first if they're tapping out for Seaborn Muse, but like most of the time that I'm seeing Seaborn Muse, like they've got like 2 or 3 mana left over that they couldn't like throw into their Thrasios, that they're just like waiting for the next untap to like start going crazy with it.
Yeah.
But like if they tap out for it, like I would still want somebody to just have mana on their turn, and for me not to be the only one with mana. So I'll be like, hey, listen, you're tapping out for a Seaborn Muse. I'm just going to show you. I have the Submerged. Like, I'll just let you know. Like, if you are playing it, I'm bouncing it to your hand because it's too much value. But
doesn't Submerge put it on top of their deck?
Yeah, but still, next turn they have to get it back and cast it again.
Yeah, you just said to the hand, so I was like clarifying.
Oh yeah. Technically, it does go to the top of the hand, but I don't know why. I just consider all bounces to hand because it's effectively a bounce.
No, that's fair.
If they aren't tapping out for it, then it's just like, yeah, I'll take the big tempo play because they were going to try to use that to try to accrue enough value to win on their following turn. But the other axis that I specifically didn't mention yet, I think of a good way of dealing with Cradle is board wipes. Like
Mhm.
that's how I've been attacking in Short Guy. Damping Sphere is just it's a difficult card for me to play, especially when I'm going for a win on my turn. Like our most recent game, I had to counter, I think it was like 7 spells, most of which was from both of you guys. Like just to resolve my polymorph so I could win the game. Like if I have Damping Sphere, ain't no way I can do that. I would need a Smothering Tithe with like 40 treasures. Like I would be so screwed. Like, and so I can play things like Curse Totem, no problem. But it's just like it's like I'm an Azorius. It's not something that I can repeatedly just get every single game. Like, sure, if I had an Enlightened Tutor in every single one of my opening hands, like sure, I wouldn't care about Thrasios. But because I'm on the polymorph version, I just played the board wipes. Like Vanquish,
Yeah.
Supreme, and Out of Time are the 3 I'm currently on. I actually just took out Cyclonic Rift. I think it was the last time I talked with River on it, and like he made me reconsider it again for like the 8th time, and I was like, you know, maybe it's finally time for me to pull it out, and I haven't missed it, honestly.
Yeah.
Wait, what did I tell you to pull out?
Cyclonic Rift.
Oh yeah, that card is so bad right now.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
only
like,
good in
if you're-
Thrasios decks.
I was gonna say, if you're in a big mana deck like Kinnan or Thrasios piles, like it's perfectly great. But if you're not, it's like, when's the last time you really overloaded it? If you're not in Simic Plus, like it's just not happening.
Yeah, I mean, like
Or I guess maybe like mono blue Urza, because you just generate a crap ton of artifact mana.
Yeah,
for
Urza,
it.
Teferi, Emery.
Yeah, if
But
you're
even
not
in Emery,
playing
like
a
I don't
big
play
mana
it.
deck like of some sort, like you're just not overloading it ever.
yeah, which we'll hold that point for a moment, but it just like is like it. Do you guys consider the meta as it is right now with what you guys are looking at? Because it sounds like we're looking at sort of the same stuff. It's just like the specialists are playing different decks in our areas. Like,
Mm.
do you think right now it's a good time to play multiple board wipes?
Yeah, I think I've been saying for a long time people should be on more board wipes. Like, or board wipe-esque stuff. If you're not answering the board in this meta, you're like just losing the game. And it's because so many people are so scared to return the game state to a natural or even state. Like I can count on one hand, I've lost a single game resolving and calling ritual. That's it. That's all it was. I've lost one game out of the like however many I've played where I've resolved calling ritual. And it was just an unfortunate thing where like it was the only thing I could do. Nobody else had literally anything and we were losing regardless if it resolved or didn't. And but like calling ritual, I'll calling it when I have Thrasios and 3 dorks and mana rocks and stuff out. I don't care. Like sure, I know I'm gonna play my Thrasios, make 2 thralls, cast my Tevesh, make 2 thralls, recast my Thrasios with this extra blue I have. I'm gonna play this thing I've been sandbagging because I knew I was gonna do this anyways. Pass. Get back to my turn. I'm gonna tutor for Cradle, play Cradle, plus my Tevesh again. Like that. If you're not able to recover from a board wipe, don't play a board wipe. But you like I've seen Rogside decks now starting to play like Deluge because like you have to be able to resolve Deluge to just play the game. And you don't have to pay that much life. You pay like 3 life into Deluge and you wipe the whole board.
Yeah.
Fire Covenant's fine. You just have to do it targeted instead of mass. I think Supreme Verdict's amazing. I think more people should be on Final Showdown.
I've been a big proponent of Supreme Verdict, literally ever since Dockside got banned. Within the first month, I would tell anybody that would listen, hey, are you tired of, like, begging for this freaking field wipe to resolve? Just play Verdict. You're
I just
playing,
imagine you going like to table to table like a Jehovah Witness speaking about Supreme
bro,
Verdict.
it was almost to that point where, like, every pod I was in, I would play Supreme Verdict, even in my, like, mid-range blue farm pile back then, and they'd be like, why are you playing this? And I'm like, because if I can't hit anybody with Temna, I don't care if Temna dies. And I sure don't want to have a 5-minute conversation on why this field wipe needs to resolve so that we don't die.
Mm-hmm.
Another one that I really like that's like it's actually an instant. It doesn't affect your board and kills probably 80% of creatures. Like,
Oh,
granted, it doesn't kill
is a
Thrasios.
fireball?
Yeah, Delayed Blast Fireball is a freaking all-star if you can spare the 3 mana for it. And, like, yeah, it's double red and 1, but, like, who cares? It kills a lot of problems in the format. It clears up almost everything that I can think of. You're killing OBM. Uh, you're killing Timnas if they're still sticking around. Malcolm's dead. Like, it doesn't discriminate. It's just really, really good right now.
Okay. Would you guys think we're at the point where like pyroclasm effects should like start being considered?
Yes. I've been
Yeah.
saying it for a very long time. You should just be on effects that wipe the board, and if you can spare them. Like a deck that I think would be really good right now if it absolutely played more to the board removal of stuff is Ob Nixilis. Yes, it runs a lot of one drop or very low like value creatures that when something happens it does a damage and then you exile the
Razorhead
card.
Needlekin, like Keratic Parasite and stuff.
But I
Yeah.
watched Wounded play this deck. Obviously, this is before Dockside got banned, but even
Yeah.
still, I think the deck is fine. Like, where Sans Dockside, you can literally just go, here's my. Like, you could wipe the board, right? Like, with a Pyroclasm. Not that he was playing it. And then, well, here's my Needlehead, or here's my Bowmaster, or here's my whatever. And, like, afterwards, right? But you have to it's just you have to change how you're playing the game to answer the board to be able to spring yourself out of the overwhelming advantage. Because if decks aren't prepared to do that, like I'm playing a deck that matches what others are doing in terms of card advantage accrual. So I'm not worried about board wipes. I could care less. But most people are in a situation where they like one board wipe will just take them out of the game. Like my buddy Hunter was playing Rogthras, and it's a deck that once it gets ahead, he will just win the game. Like usually by turn 3, you know if he's going to win the game or not. He doesn't have to put a win attempt on the stack. He could just make 10 mana and have Thrasios on the field, and you know that like I've lost because all he's going to do is whatever. But a lot of those decks will shove their hand out. They won't play conservatively at all with what they're doing because you're not supposed to. That's not how you play that deck. And then a well-timed Culling Ritual or a Toxic Deluge destroys their whole day. And then now it's like, crap. Now Growing Rights is bad. Now my Cradle is bad. And now this, what's the 1-drop artifact that untaps lands? Candelabra. My Candelabra is bad. Like, you make yourself in such a bad position by like trying to turbo doing that stuff, and you can punish it. It's just people won't do it. People refuse. Like,
yeah.
And the more they refuse, the more they can lose games. Like, I'll let you keep losing games to me if you're not going to keep wiping my board, or if you're not going to wipe my board at least once. Like, I'll let you do that, but it's just people have to rematch or like rechange the way they think about the format. I just think too many people haven't, and wipes are just good.
So, you alluded to it earlier, Mark, and I think this would be a good thing to talk about. Probably the last topic we'll cover, at least on this episode, before we jump into all our other topics we have prepared, is Cyclonic Rift's usefulness. I know River and I, you and I spoke about this recently, which is why we wanted to talk about it. Is that like Cyclonic Rift historically used to be an amazing card, and in its context of Magic, we're kind of in like the only format where like it's realistically viable to run it even in a deck. Just because like one, you have so many opponents, and two, the cards back in the day that like probably would have seen play that are seeing play now have like greatly changed how good of a card Cyclonic Rift was. And like my problem with Shorekai a lot recently wasn't about like how much mana can I realistically create from it, because like in a control deck, Cyclonic Rift, you aren't utilizing to try to win the game unless for some reason you've got like a really prevalent stacks player in your meta or stuff like that, because then it's going to be useful where you're just like, okay, pop everything. If it resolves, like I can win on my turn because you just end step it. But like
Yeah.
outside of that, which like I don't know about you guys, I'm not really seeing any stacks anymore right now, just because it's placed in the meta right now is bad. So like an issue that I've seen is like somebody will have like a Valley Flood Caller or like a High Fate Trickster, and like they just have a bunch of mana. So like if you Cyclonic Rift it and they have the rocks there or they have these things in the battlefield, they just go, okay, float mana. After Cyclonic Rift resolves, replay it all. And like at that point, it's like I only got like a minor tempo play, or I set the other players back way too far. Where if I have to spend too many resources of my own to now stop the other person that just got ahead for my Cyclonic Rift, that I get punished for playing it. Like, how has the card been treating you guys recently? I assume you're still on it in Thrasios Tevish River, like because you just make a bunch of mana.
Funny enough, though, I've casted it like one time recently, and it was because I was so far ahead of the game where I sorcery speed Cyclonic Rifted because I had a Rhystic Study on the field. So I was like Psych Rift overloaded, and the table just kind of looked and they're like, why are you doing this now? And I'm like, well, because you're going to have to replay all your stuff and you're just going to draw me a bunch of cards. And I'm just going to keep outvaluing you. So you guys can scoop here if you have nothing for it. But like, either it makes it back to my turn or it makes it back to my turn with, 20 more cards in my hand. And they were like, yeah, because they like amongst themselves, like, can we afford to pay for it? And I was like, no, you all are going to tap out paying for my Rhystic Study. Going into my next turn where I get to untap with a ton of mana because I've already overloaded a Cyclonic Rift with mana after. There
It's
isn't
pretty
a
much
world.
counterspell check at that point because like
Yeah.
if they have a counterspell, they're just gonna counter it to like prevent that much value from being accrued because it's just insane, especially if you are that much ahead of the table.
Oh,
and
yeah.
like if they don't, then you're just like, cool, did you top deck one? No, cool, I'm gonna win now.
Yeah, well, and even if they top deck one, like the way the deck plays is like, here's a spell. Can you afford to counter it? Because it's a Biomancer's Familiar, and it's like, well, I don't have Force of Will in my hand, and I don't want to use it on a Biomancer's Familiar. Cool. Here's a Sabora Breeze Caller. Do you have a and it's like, well, crap. No, I could Force of Will here, and it's like, yeah, you could, but now I'm going to dig with Thrasios and respond. Like, outside of decks that just accrue a ton of mana, like Rog Thras, Yoshi Thras, Tevesh Thrasios, Kinnan, Tevesh, or not Tevesh, Thrasios,
if it's not a Thrasios
Francis,
style or a heavy artifact deck, pretty much that just makes a crap ton of artifact mana. Yeah, it's like kind of subpar. I don't even have it in my Kefka pile that I'm putting together right now. I'm like, I'm never spending 7 mana to play this card.
And it's even bad targeted removal. Like, it's any non-land permanent, but I don't want to spend 2 mana. Like, what on the board are you removing at instant speed that matters right now? The only thing that comes to mind is like maybe Opposition Agent, but outside of Opposition Agent, there's just nothing that you're like the targeted removal does for you. Because like, yeah, I could get rid of this Rhystic Study, but like somebody else is also accruing value, and I only do it for a turn. So unless I'm storming off, it makes no sense to stop them for 2 players' turns to not draw cards. Or I could get rid of Smothering Tithe, but they've already made 4 or 5 treasures, and like, sure, they go turn rotation. There's just nothing I can think of where I'm like, yeah, I really need to bounce any creature currently.
Yeah, I think the only one you care about bouncing immediately is Seaborn Muse, really.
Yeah,
well,
and even then, like
something like Stern Dismissal, if you're not a big mana deck, where it's literally 1 mana, bounce a creature or enchantment, like done.
Yeah, or like Winds of Rebuke, or there's so many things that you could do. I still hate Chain of Vapor, so like Into the Flood Maw, like there's just so many different things. Or you could play like there are other lower costed spells. So like in Emery, I don't play Cyclonic Rift. I play Desynchronization because it bounces all like non-historic stuff. My entire deck is historic stuff. Sans like maybe a couple cards. And so I can for 4 mana at instant speed, which I am always reliably getting to within any game I am playing, wipe the board essentially going into my turn to do stuff, right? Or like Filter Out. Filter Out bounces. It doesn't hit creatures, but it hits like all of the things that like Cyclonic Rift cares about bouncing normally when it's overloaded, which is like the Rhystic Studies or the One Rings or whatever. Like it just bounces all of that stuff, which again, you're okay with. Like, and that's 3 mana, add instant speed. Sure, it's not a full Cyc Rift, but you don't. It's like you don't need to do that. Like 7 mana is like, hey guys, I finally hit 7 mana. I can overload the Cyclonic Rift, and it's like, sure, good luck putting people in that position where you're telling them that they like have to let you resolve an overloaded Cyclonic Rift to deal with one thing on the board. Like it's not going to happen.
Yeah. The only times I've seen like overloaded Psych Rift resolve like in the last year and a half really was when I was playing Elevir, and that was because it was their only one card out to my deck.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's really great in the stacks when the game goes
Yeah,
long enough
it's
and you
great.
have 7
Yeah.
mana because everyone's
Yeah,
going to let it
let's-
resolve. But
When it's time in 5 minutes, you go, "Hey, I'm gonna overload this. Oh, it's resolving. All right, can we draw now?"
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the card has definitely lost its importance in cEDH, is the way I'll put it. Back in the day, even in like Flash Hulk meta, like that was still a Thrasia's dominated area. And so like if you weren't playing Thrasias to play all the dorks and build up to it, the Cyclonic Rift like in your deck just pretty much was a 2-mana bounce spell. That's all it ever was. Like even in like turbo metas, like okay, let me clarify. Turbo metas not including Dockside, because Dockside just gives you all the mana in the world to overload it. Like even like those situations, it's just like, does bouncing everything even matter if it's turn 2 if you somehow have 7 mana turn 2? Like if you're
no,
playing
you
a
should
turbo
just win the
deck,
game.
yeah, exactly. It's just like even in those places, it's been kind of mediocre. But it's always whenever you run into like the mid range stuff. At the time, it was amazing. Like the flash prevalence wasn't there. Valley Flood Color, High Face Trickster, and Board Upon the Wind were all cards that didn't exist when Cyclonic Rift was in when it was in its heyday. Like nowadays, like just putting them into either exile or the graveyard feels so much stronger than putting it to their hand. Like even if you have to focus on the sorcery speed aspect of a lot of the cards, the one that River mentioned was Final Showdown, which I was on for a while in Shorekai, which I don't feel the need for anymore. But like if you want an instant speed version to deal with the board, and like right now creatures are the problem, like you can just play Final Showdown. Like sure, it's going to be protection for like the destroy stuff, so like the Swords to Plowshares and Deadly Rollick like we'll still get around it because you can give something you control indestructible. But like if that's something that you're looking for in this meta, it can be achieved with like my personal favorite right now is currently Vanquish the Horde, because it's a 2 mana board wipe.
Mhm.
Like it's so efficient. Like it's one less compared to Toxic Deluge, and you don't lose life. Like it's
That's how I feel about Blasphemous Act too. I'm
Damn.
very big on that card as well. Like if you can play them, you should.
Mm.
Especially
Like,
Vanquish the Horde. Vanquish the Horde's really good.
yeah.
Just to kind of go back to the land destruction side of things for a minute. Is there any deck that we feel like could like be beneficial in the meta that plays like mass land destruction? The only one that comes to mind for me would be like Lavinia Azorius Renegade, because it like pretty much just tells your opponents if they don't have more lands in hand, they're just not playing non-creature spells.
Yeah, I mean, Lavinia as a commander in general really wants to be in a turbo meta, because like the turbo decks are either casting stuff for free or casting things that have higher CMC than the number of lanes they play. But like
Mhm.
we're in a bit of a combination of it being a mid-range creature meta. Both things Lavinia just like as itself as a card just does not answer in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
I
So-
think if the deck got any better cards for itself, because like it really hasn't gotten anything in a very long time. Like
Mhm.
again, it was really good in turbo meta. I played it for a while. But outside of like turbo, funny enough, her game plan's like fairly consistent depending on the mana you can make and what you're trying to do. The issue with adding land destruction is kind of like how you mentioned earlier with forget exactly what spell it was. Oh, with the moon effects, it works the same way with mass land destruction. Is you have to now be the person answering everything because hey, you just blew up my lands. I can't play anything because you have Lavinia, anyways. Which means not only can I literally not answer anything, but like even if I could, I'm not going to because the game's on you, like big dog. Like, you have to do all the answering. And which she is like a harder control stacks deck that looks to just lock the game down. But yeah, you just have to be prepared for your opponents to like
Either have to control the table or be able to close it before they can rebuild.
And both of those things are like not things she's great at. She can lock the table down, but like her win conditions are so not consistent. Like getting to the lockdown is easy, but your opponents aren't going to scoop. So you like have to play it out, which means you're going to have to like let people take their turns, which is going to take time because people are going to think and slow play. And then it's kind of like the Elevir effect where your opponents are going to think way too hard about things where they shouldn't need to. Like, hey, dude, you have one land in play and like some mana rocks. Do you have a 1 mana spell in your hand? No? Pass your gosh darn turn. Like,
yeah, like play your creature spell or we're not talking about anything. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think the like land destruction has always been a very difficult thing to see usefulness in cEDH. Like I know the casual side of it really thinks land destruction is a part of cEDH, but like in reality, like if you cast like Armageddon, for example, like that card doesn't technically do anything to win you the game. It just sets everybody back. Like if you're looking for land destruction, it's got to be controlled in some way, shape, or form. And like for me, that's Corvold lands, Lumra, or like Necrobloom that have the, or even like, or even like Taptiova, Gitrog, and like all these decks that are looking to utilize extra lands to facilitate their game plan. I think those have the slots available to them where they can actually start to benefit from this. But aside from it, at least with the discussions I've had with various people that are testing like Wasteland and Strip Mine, that it's like it's never a card they want to look for. But it's in the hopes that if you're already playing like utility lands that are like kind of mediocre, you just swap them out for it for the upside of when it comes in handy, it'll help you get there and stay in the game. But if you don't have them, like it's never tutoring anyway. Like unless you're in probably a like, which in this meta I don't know why you would be, but like, you would be in a 2-color green deck that doesn't have blue. Because at that point, you're already like searching for your cradle 8 ways till Sunday to try to abuse it. And if you're doing that, then you can start having like Wasteland and like Strip Mine as like other tutor targets for your land tutor specifically. And even then, it's just like those decks right now aren't positioned very well. That like you're already making a choice to like set yourself back to play them, whether you're a specialist or not. That like if we were to see something be useful out of it, it would have to be a commander version, something that would target a land from each of your opponents. Now, I don't know anything that's going on in the design team, if that's even like a part of anything that they're covering in the future sets. But like we would have to get something on like that caliber to find its way into cEDH, because that hits Minamo, Talon Gates, that hits Cradle. Like it hits like numerous things that we would find annoying because these utility lands are strong enough to see play in our meta, or like even just in our format in general. Because like even Mistrise Village, a fairly popular land, and it's becoming a mainstay in the format. That going 1-for-1 in these when you have 2 other opponents that you're just like essentially helping, that it's never truly worth it.
Yeah, basically just abuse strip mine and wasteland if you're in 1 to 2 color decks instead of like mass land destruction shenanigans.
Mm-hmm. Like
It just seems like it's like bracket 4 limbo, because if you're in like brackets 2 or 3, you're literally just not allowed to play mass land destruction, and then like I don't know, it's just in a weird spot.
It's also just land destruction inherently is just not good. Like there's been one, I don't know if it was played in Legacy, but I remember my time in Modern, where there's been like one Modern deck that I could remember that used any type of mass land destruction, and that was the Balance deck, which like it wasn't specifically balanced, but it's the one where you suspend it or whatever.
Yeah, it's the no mana cost version, kind of like the Profane Tutor.
Yeah, it's like, and that deck was good, but it relied on you forcing early, which every Modern deck does, and then you doing nothing and sandbagging all your stuff, and then boom, you win the game because they have nothing anymore, and then you just run away with the game.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, they had to utilize the card as foretold, the enchantment. Yes.
Yeah, they even went as far as to try out Electro Dominance at one point, because you could just pay 2 mana and do it at instant speed.
Yeah, like there's other than that, and I haven't played enough Legacy or Vintage, it's just destroying all of the lands, unless your deck is, again, specifically built around lands and reusing your lands. It's just not good. And even, it's not only is it not good, unlike stacks where like there are play patterns to get yourself out of it or ways to like politic or whatever, even in casual, there's literally like, there's not a lot you can do against mass land destruction. And most decks, even if you were to allow it in lower brackets, like, cool, you destroyed all of my lands. Are you winning anytime soon? Okay, can we all just scoop? Because I don't want to play a 3-hour game where I'm going to rebuild my stuff and then you're going to redo it again. Like, and that's kind of like the rough spot for mass land destruction. It would be much better if there were ways to, like let's say you'd have to make a lot of mana to make this work, but you would have to pair your cards with stuff like Teferi's Protection or anything that gave blanket,
Boros Charm or Heroic Intervention or something
like
that.
Yeah, anything that gave your permanents indestructible.
They both resolve, because like good luck.
Well, and not only hoping they both resolve, you're having to spend like what Heroic Intervention is 2 and the lowest mass land destruction is 4. So you have to spend 6 mana essentially tapping out on your turn to hope it resolves, and then you're gonna probably have to protect it. So now you're just at so much mana.
Yeah, and then you get Mindbreak trapped and cry.
Yeah. Like when was the last time Lord Windgrace ever did good? That's when mass land destruction was playable.
Funny enough, I think it was a year ago that deck actually did some stuff. Let me look it up. But that's another deck that was like, that's a deck where in bracket 4 I could see it doing really well because it just grabs its lands back from the graveyard, which is really good. Like that's where you want your mass land destruction to be. But it's also in the colors that doesn't mass destroy lands that much.
Yeah, all of their versions are very high costed.
Yeah, so like you're still running into like kind of the same problems. But yeah, mass land destruction to like set people behind would be great, only if they ever print a low costed commander that says permanents you control are indestructible, like 3 mana or whatever. Sure.
3 mana
and
Avacyn?
It's white. Yeah, the 3 mana Avacyn, or like if it specifies lands or whatever, and when landy like get to suck off your opponent or something, like you could absolutely print something like that and it'd be fine. Outside of that, I don't think it's going to be, mass land destruction probably won't be good for like another 2 to 3 years, and that's depending on what the design wants to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Cradle right now is just like in terms of Eternal Magic and the ones that we have access to, like the most busted lands are obviously like Tolarian Academy, Caracas, and like Cradle for as far as Eternal Magic goes. And in our format, we only have one of them. And it's interesting to think about how in our format, like and in the way that it plays out, especially with how metas go, that land destruction is something that actually isn't good enough to see play.
Was it Steward of the Harvest? Was that the 4-drop that
Yeah.
exiled the land and all creatures had the activated abilities of it? Or like
Something
non-mana?
along the lines of that, yeah. But Steward of the Harvest is the card. Yeah, you got to on ETB exile up to 3 lands from your graveyard, and I think it was tokens you control have the activated abilities. Something along the lines with creatures having the activated abilities start cracking to blow up lands. But like even in like
that's like only good in very specific decks, yeah.
yeah, it's like it's only like Chatterfang or like Necrobloom that could actually support that.
Yeah, it's all creatures. I just looked it up. It's when this creature ETBs exile up to 3 target land cards from your graveyard. Creatures you control have all activated abilities of all land cards exiled with this creature. So it does work for mana abilities too, but like 4 mana is a lot for that investment too.
Yeah, but it's also counterintuitive because like you're in green and you're playing Cradle, then you have to give up your own creatures to blow up other people's lands, but like maybe it's worth it.
Yeah. It really
Like-
just depends. Like Necrobloom, because like obviously you just get extra bodies and whatnot.
Yeah.
If you're in any kind of like Field of the Dead pile, then like sure. But yeah, you'd have to be in pretty specific builds for anything like that.
Yeah, it's definitely a weird place to be. Is there anything else that you guys want to add? I think we've been talking for about 2.5 hours now. We've had a lot to discuss here in this episode.
No, I got nothing.
No, I think we covered pretty much all of it. For those of you listening that are interested, the physical store for Top Flight Gaming will be opening. Hopefully by the end of this month. We're doing a bunch of like remodeling and just freshening up because we are leasing a space that was used previously. But really excited about that, and hopefully in the next week or two we can finalize an opening date for you guys. We will see you guys next week.
Yeah, I think that was a great discussion and a great way to actually cover all of these topics. I think we each had a lot to say. And with that, we're your hosts. I'm Kay.
Mark.
I'm River.
And we'll see you next time on the Tourney Timmys podcast.